Hooves trampling fast, wheels largely stumbling ceased, the chariot stood like an arrested wind. And such Oven looked out from his soul's doors and felt the enchantment of her liquid voice fill his youth's purple ambience and endured the haunting miracle of a perfect face. Mastered by the honey of a strange flower mouth, drawn to soul spaces opening round a brow, he turned to the vision like a sea to the moon and suffered a dream of beauty and of change, discovered the aureole round a mortal's head, adored a new divinity in things. His self-bound nature founded as in fire, his life was taken into another's life. The splendid lonely idols of his brain fell prostrate from their bright sufficiencies, as at the touch of a new infinite, to worship a godhead greater than their own. An unknown imperious force drew him to her. Marveling he came across the golden sward, gaze met close gaze and clung in sight's embrace. A visage was there, noble and great and calm, as if encircled by a halo of thought, a span, an arch of meditating light, as though some secret nimbus half was seen, her inner vision still remembering knew a forehead that wore the crown of all her past, 2 eyes her constant and eternal stars, comrade and sovereign eyes that claimed her soul, lids known a promise and a presence and a fire, saw an embodiment of aeonic dreams, a mystery of the rapture for which all yearns in this world of brief. Mortality made immaterial shape his very own. This golden figure given to his grasp hid in its breast the key of all his aims, a spell to bring the immortal's bliss on earth, to mate with heaven's truth our mortal thought, to lift earth, hearts nearer the eternal's Sunday in these great spirits now incarnate here love brought down power out of eternity to make of life his new undying base. His passion surged away from fathomless deeps, it leaped to earth from far forgotten heights, but kept its nature of infinity. On the dumb bosom of this oblivious globe although as unknown beings we seem to meet, our lives are not aliens nor as strangers join, moved to each other by a causeless force. The soul can recognize its answering soul across dividing time and, on life's roads absorbed rapt traveler, turning it recovers familiar splendors in an unknown face and touched by the warning finger of swift love it thrills again to an immortal joy wearing a mortal body for delight. There is a power within that knows beyond our knowings, we are greater than our thoughts, and sometimes earth unveils that vision here. To live, to love are signs of infinite things, love is a glory from eternity's spheres. Abased, disfigured, mocked by baser mights that steal his name and shape and ecstasy, he is still the Godhead by which all can change. A mystery wakes in our inconscient stuff, a bliss is born that can remake our life. Love dwells in us like an unopened flower awaiting a rapid moment of the soul, or he roams in his charmed sleep mid thoughts and things, the child God is at play, he seeks himself in many hearts and minds and living forms, he lingers for a sign that he can know and, when it comes, wakes blindly to a voice, a look, a touch, the meaning of a face. His instrument the dim corporeal mind, of celestial insight now forgetful grown, he seizes on some sign of outward charm to guide him mid the throng of nature's hints, reads heavenly truths into earth's semblances, desires the image for the Godhead's sake, divines the immortalities of form and takes the body for the sculptured soul. Love's adoration like a mystic seer through vision looks at the invisible, in earth's alphabet finds a godlike sense, but the mind only thinks, behold the one for whom my life has waited long unfilled. Behold the sudden sovereign of my days, heart feels for heart, limb cries for answering limb, all strives to enforce the unity all is. Too far from the divine, love seeks his truth and life is blind and the instruments deceive and powers are there that labor to debase. Still can the vision come, the joy arrive. Rare is the cup fit for love's nectar wine, as rare the vessel that can hold God's birth. A soul made ready through 1,000 years is the living mold of a supreme descent. These knew each other though in forms thus strange. Although to sight unknown, though life and mind had altered to hold a new significance, these bodies summed the drift of numberless births, and the spirit to the spirit was the same. Amazed by a joy for which they had waited long, the lovers met upon their different paths, travelers across the limitless plains of time together drawn from fate-led journeyings in the self-closed solitude of their human past, to a swift rapturous dream of future joy in the unexpected present of these eyes. By the revealing greatness of a look, form-smitten the spirit's memory woke in sense. The mist was torn that lay between two lives, her heart unveiled and his to find her turned, attracted as in heaven star by star, they wondered at each other and rejoiced and wove affinity in a silent gaze. A moment passed that was eternity's ray, and hour began, the matrix of new time. Canto 3. Satyavan and Savitri. Out of the voiceless mystery of the past in a present ignorant of forgotten bonds these spirits met upon the roads of time. Yet in the heart their secret conscious selves at once aware grew of each other warned by the first call of a delightful voice and a first vision of the destined face. As when being cries to being from its depths behind the screen of the external sense and strives to find the heart-disclosing word, the passionate speech revealing the soul's need, but the mind's ignorance veils the inner sight, only a little breaks through our earth-made bounds, so now they met in that momentous hour, so utter the recognition in the deeps, the remembrance lost, the oneness felt and missed. Thus Satyavan spoke first to Savitri, O thou who comest to me out of time's silences, yet thy voice has wakened my heart to an unknown bliss, immortal or mortal only in thy frame, for more than earth speaks to me from thy soul and more than earth surrounds me in thy gaze, how art thou named among the sons of men? Whence hast thou dawned filling my spirit's days, brighter than summer, brighter than my flowers, into the lonely borders of my life, O sunlight molded like a golden maid. I know that mighty gods are friends of earth. Amid the pageantries of day and dusk, long have I travelled with my pilgrim soul moved by the marvel of familiar things. Earth could not hide from me the powers she veils, even though moving mid an earthly scene and the common surfaces of terrestrial things, my vision saw unblinded by her forms, the Godhead looked at me from familiar scenes. I witnessed the virgin bridals of the dawn behind the glowing curtains of the sky or vying in joy with the bright morning steps I paced along the slumbrous coasts of noon, or the gold desert of the sunlight cross-traversing great wastes of splendor and of fire, or met the moon gliding amazed through heaven in the uncertain wideness of the night, or the stars marched on their long sentinel routes pointing their spears through the infinitudes, the day and dusk revealed to me hidden shapes. Figures have come to me from secret shores and happy faces looked from ray and flame. I have heard strange voices cross the ether's waves, the centaur's wizard song has thrilled my ear, I have glimpsed the apsaras bathing in the pools, I have seen the wood nymphs peering through the leaves, the winds have shown to me their trampling lords, I have beheld the princes of the sun burning in thousand-pillared homes of light. So now my mind could dream and my heart fear that from some wonder couch beyond our air risen in a wide morning of the gods thou drovest thy horses from the thunderers' worlds. Although to heaven thy beauty seems allied, much rather would my thoughts rejoice to know that mortal sweetness smiles between thy lids and thy heart can beat beneath a human gaze and thy aureate bosom quiver with a look earth's ease of simple things can satisfy, if thy glance can dwell content on earthly soil. And this celestial summary of delight, thy golden body, dally with fatigue oppressing with its grace our terrain, while the frail sweet passing taste of earthly food delays thee and the torrent's leaping wine, descend. Let thy journey cease, come down to us. Close is my father's creeped hermitage screened by the tall ranks of these silent kings, sung to by voices of the hue-robed choirs whose chants repeat transcribed in music's notes the passionate colored lettering of the boughs and fill the hours with their melodious cry. Amid the welcome hum of many bees invade our honeyed kingdom of the woods, there let me lead thee into an opulent life. Bare, simple is the sylvan hermit life, yet is it clad with the jewelry of earth. Wild winds run, visitors midst the swaying tops, through the calm days heaven's sentinels of peace couched on a purple robe of sky above look down on a rich secrecy and hush and the chambered nuptial waters chant within. Enormous, whispering, meniformed around high forest gods have taken in their arms the human hour, a guest of their centured pomps. Apparelled are the morns in gold and green, sunlight and shadow tapestry the walls to make a resting chamber fit for thee. Awhile she paused as if hearing still his voice, unwilling to break the charm, then slowly spoke. Musing she answered, I am Savitri, Princess of Madras. Who art thou? What name musical on earth has flowered at last upon one happy branch? Why is thy dwelling in the pathless wood far from the deeds thy glorious youth demands, haunt of the anchorites and earth's wilder broods, where only with thy witness self thou roam'st in nature's green unhuman loneliness surrounded by enormous silences and the blind murmur of primeval calms? And Suchavan replied to Savitri, in days when yet his sight looked clear on life, King Dumatsina once, the Shalwa, reigned through all the tract which from behind these tops passing its days of emerald. Delight in trusting converse with the traveller winds turns, looking back towards the southern heavens, and leans its flank upon the musing hills. But equal fate removed her covering hand. A living night enclosed the strong man's paths, heaven's brilliant gods recalled their careless gifts, took from blank eyes their glad and helping ray and led the uncertain goddess from his side. Outcast from empire of the outer light, lost to the comradeship of seeing men, he sojourns in two solitudes, within and in the solemn rustle of the woods. Son of that king, I, Suchavan, have lived contented, for not yet of thee aware, in my high-peopled loneliness of spirit and this huge vital murmur kin to me, nursed by the vastness, pupil of solitude. Great nature came to her recovered child. I reigned in a kingdom of a nobler kind than men can build upon dull matter's soil. I met the frankness of the primal earth, I enjoyed the intimacy of infant God. In the great tapestried chambers of her state, free in her boundless palace I have dwelt indulged by the warm mother of us all, reared with my natural brothers in her house. I lay in the wide bare embrace of heaven, the sunlight's radiant blessing clasped my brow, the moonbeam's silver ecstasy at night kissed my dim lids to sleep. Earth's morns were mine, lured by faint murmurings with the green-robed hours I wandered lost in woods, prone to the voice of winds and waters, partner of the sun's joy, a listener to the universal speech, my spirit satisfied within me knew godlike our birthright, luxuried our life whose close belongings are the earth and skies. Before fate led me into this emerald world, aroused by some foreshadowing touch within, an early prescience in my mind approached the great dumb animal consciousness of earth now grown so close to me who have left old pomps to live in this grandiose murmur dim and vast. Already I met her in my spirit's dream. As if to a deeper country of the soul transposing the vivid imagery of earth, through an inner seeing and sense awakening came. A vision spell pursued my boyhood's hours. All things the eye had caught in colored lines were seen anew through the interpreting mind and in the shape it sought to seize the soul. An early child God took my hand that held, moved, guided by the seeking of his touch, bright forms and hues which fled across his sight, limned upon page and stone they spoke to men. High beauty's visitants my intimates were. The neighing pride of rapid life that roams wind-maned through our pastures, on my seeing mood cast shapes off against the vesper sky became a song of evening to the silence of my soul. I caught for some eternal eye the sudden kingfisher flashing to a darkling pool, a slow swan silvering the azure lake, a shape of magic whiteness, sailed through dream, leaves trembling with the passion of the wind, pranked butterflies, the conscious flowers of air, and wandering wings in blue infinity lived on the tablets of my inner sight, mountains and trees stood there like thoughts from God. The brilliant longbills in their vivid dress, the peacock scattering on the breeze his moons painted my memory like a frescoed wall. I carved my vision out of wood and stone, I caught the echoes of a word supreme and meted the rhythm beats of infinity and listened through music for the eternal voice. I felt a covert touch, I heard a call, but could not clasp the body of my God or hold between my hands the world mother's feet. In men I met strange portions of a self that sought for fragments and in fragments lived, each lived in himself and for himself alone and with the rest joined only fleeting ties, each passioned over his surface joy and grief, nor saw the eternal in his secret house. I conversed with nature, mused with the changeless stars, God's watchfires burning in the ignorant night, and saw upon her mighty visage fall a ray prophetic of the eternal Sunday I sat with the forest sages in their trance. There poured awakening streams of diamond light, I glimpsed the presence of the One in all. But still there lacked the last transcendent power, and matter still the spirit was saved, the body lost and mute lived still with death and ancient ignorance, the inconscient was its base, the void its fate. But thou hast come and all will surely change, I shall feel the world mother in thy golden limbs and hear her wisdom in thy sacred voice. The child of the void shall be reborn in God, my matter shall evade the inconscience trance. My body like my spirit shall be free. It shall escape from death and ignorance. And Savitri, musing still, replied to him, Speak more to me, speak more, O Suchavan, speak of thyself and all thou art within, I would know thee as if we had ever lived together in the chamber of our souls. Speak till a light shall come into my heart and my moved mortal mind shall understand what all the deathless being in me feels. It knows that thou art he my spirit has sought amidst earth's thronging visages and forms across the golden spaces of my life, and Suchavan like a replying harp to the insistent calling of a flute answered her questioning and let stream to her his heart in many, colored waves of speech. O golden princess, perfect Savitri, more I would tell than failing words can speak, of all that thou hast meant to me, unknown, all that the lightning flash of love reveals in one great hour of the unveiling. Gods. Even a brief nearness has reshaped my life. For now I know that all I lived and was moved towards this moment of my heart's rebirth, I look back on the meaning of myself, a soul made ready on earth's soil for thee. Once were my days like days of other men, to think and act was all, to enjoy and breathe, this was the width and height of mortal hope, yet there came glimpses of a deeper self that lives behind life and makes her act its scene. A truth was felt that screened its shape from mind, a greatness working towards a hidden end, and vaguely through the forms of earth there looked something that life is not and yet must be. I groped for the mystery with the lantern, thought. Its glimmerings lighted with the abstract word a half-visible ground and traveling yard by yard it mapped a system of the self and God. I could not live the truth it spoke and thought. I turned to seize its form in visible things, hoping to fix its rule by mortal mind, imposed a narrow structure of world law upon the freedom of the infinite, a hard firm skeleton of outward truth, a mental scheme of a mechanic power. This light showed more the darknesses unsearched, it made the original secrecy more occult, it could not analyze its cosmic veil or glimpse the wonderworker's hidden hand and trace the pattern of his magic plans. I plunged into an inner seeing mind and knew the secret laws and sorceries that make of matter mind's bewildered slave. The mystery was not solved but deepened more. I strove to find its hints through beauty and art, but form cannot unveil the indwelling power, only it throws its symbols at our hearts. It evoked a mood of self, invoked a sign of all the brooding glory hidden in sense. I lived in the ray but faced not to the sun. I looked upon the world and missed the self, and when I found theme other selves I lost and the body of God, the link of the finite with the infinite, the bridge between the appearance and the truth, the mystic aim for which the world was made, the human sense of immortality. But now the gold link comes to me with thy feet and his gold sun has shone on me from thy face. For now another realm draws near with thee and now diviner voices fill my ear, a strange new world swims to me in thy gaze approaching like a star from unknown heavens, a cry of spheres comes with thee and a song of flaming gods. I draw a wealthier breath and in a fierier march of moments move. My mind transfigures to a rapturous seer. A foam leap traveling from the waves of bliss has changed my heart and changed the earth around, all with thy coming fills. Air, soil and stream wear bridal raiment to be fit for thee and sunlight grows a shadow of thy hue because of change within me by thy look. Come nearer to me from thy car of light on this green sward disdaining not our soil. For here are secret spaces made for thee whose caves of emerald long to screen thy form. Wilt thou not make this mortal bliss thy sphere? Descend, O happiness, with thy moon, gold feet in rich earth's floors upon whose sleep we lie. O my bright beauty's Princess Savitri, by my delight and thy own joy compelled enter my life, thy chamber and thy shrine. In the great quietness where spirits meet, led by my hushed desire into my woods let the dim rustling arches over thee lean, one with the breath of things eternal live, thy heart beats near to mine, till there shall leap enchanted from the fragrance of the flowers a moment which all murmurs shall recall and every bird remember in its cry. Allured to her lashes by his passionate words, her fathomless soul looked out at him from her eyes, passing her lips in liquid sounds it spoke. This word alone she uttered and said all, O Suchavan, I have heard thee and I know that thou and only thou art he. Then down she came from her high carven car, descending with a soft and faltering haste, her many-hued raiment glistening in the light, hovered a moment over the wind-stirred grass, mixed with a glimmer of her body's ray like lovely plumage of a settling bird. Her gleaming feet upon the green-gold sward scattered a memory of wandering beams and lightly pressed the unspoken desire of earth cherished in her too brief passing by the soil. Then flitting like pale brilliant moths her hands took from the sylvan verge sunlit arms a load of their jewel faces clustering swarms, companions of the springtime and the breeze. A candid garland set with simple forms her rapid fingers taught a flower song, the stanza'd movement of a marriage hymn. Profound in perfume and immersed in hue they mixed their yearnings coloured signs and made the bloom of their purity and passion one. A sacrament of joy in treasuring palms she brought, flower symbol of her offered life, then with raised hands that trembled a little now at the very closeness that her soul desired, this bond of sweetness, their bright union sign, she laid on the bosom coveted by her love. As if inclined before some gracious God who as out of his mist of greatness shone to fill with beauty his adorer's hours, she bowed and touched his feet with worshipping hands. She made her life his world for him to tread, and made her body the room of his delight, her beating heart a remembrancer of bliss. He bent to her and took into his own their married yearning joined like folded hopes, as if a whole rich world suddenly possessed, wedded to all he had been, became himself, an inexhaustible joy made his alone, he gathered all Savitri into his clasp. Around her his embrace became the sign of a locked closeness through slow intimate years, a first sweet summary of delight to come, one brevity intense of all long life. In a wide moment of two souls that meet she felt her being flow into him as in waves a river pours into a mighty sea. As when a soul is merging into God to live in him forever and know his joy, her consciousness grew aware of him alone and all her separate self was lost in his. As a starry heaven encircles happy earth, he shut her into himself in a circle of bliss and shut the world into himself and her. A boundless isolation made them one, he was aware of her enveloping him and let her penetrate his very soul as is a world by the world spirit filled, as the mortal wakes into eternity, as the finite opens to the infinite. Thus were they in each other lost a while, then drawing back from their long ecstasies trance came into a new self and a new world. Each now was a part of the other's unity, the world was but their twin self-finding seen or their own wedded being's vaster frame. On the high glowing cupola of the day fate tied a knot with morning's halo threads while by the ministry of an auspice our heart bound before the sun, their marriage fire, the wedding of the eternal Lord and spouse took place again on earth in human forms, in a new act of the drama of the world the united two began a greater age. In the silence and murmur of that emerald world and the mutter of the priest-twin's sacred verse, amid the choral whispering of the leaves love's twain had joined together and grew one. The natural miracle was wrought once more. In the immutable ideal world one human moment was eternal made. Then down the narrow path where their lives had met he led and showed to her her future world, love's refuge and corner of happy solitude. At the path's end through a green cleft in the trees she saw a clustering line of hermit roofs and looked now first on her heart's future home, the thatch that covered the life of Suchavan. Adorned with creepers and red climbing flowers it seemed a sylvan beauty in her dreams slumbering with brown body and tumbled hair in her chamber in violet of emerald peace. Around it stretched the forest's anchorite mood lost in the depths of its own solitude. Then moved by the deep joy she could not speak, a little depth of it quivering in her words, her happy voice cried out to Suchavan, my heart will stay here on this forest verge and close to this thatched roof while I am far. Now of more wandering it has no need. But I must haste back to my father's house which soon will lose one loved accustomed tread and listen in vain for a once cherished voice. For soon I shall return, nor ever again one us must sever its recovered bliss or fate sunder our lives while life is ours. Once more she mounted on the carven car, and under the ardor of a fiery noon less bright than the splendor of her thoughts and dreams she sped swift-reined, swift-hearted, but still saw in still lucidities of sight's inner world through the cool-scented woods, luxurious gloom on shadowy paths between great rugged trunks, pace towards a tranquil clearing such Arvin. A nave of trees enshrined the hermit thatch, the new deep covert of her felicity, preferred to heaven her soul's temple and home. This now remained with her, her heart's constant scene. Book 6. The Book of Fate. Canto 1. The Word of Fate. In silent bounds bordering the mortal's plain, crossing a wide expanse of brilliant peace, Narad the heavenly sage from paradise came chanting through the large and lustrous air. Attracted by the golden summer earth that lay beneath him like a glowing bowl tilted upon a table of the gods, turning as if moved round by an unseen hand to catch the warmth and blaze of a small sun, he passed from the immortal's happy paths to a world of toil and quest and grief and hope, to these rooms of the seesaw game of death with life. Across an intangible border of soul space he passed from mind into material things amid the inventions of the inconscient self and the workings of a blind somnambulist force. Below him circling burned the myriad suns, he bore the ripples of the etheric sea, a primal air brought the first joy of touch, a secret spirit drew its mighty breath contracting and expanding this huge world in its formidable circuit through the void. The secret might of the creative fire displayed its triple power to build and form, its infinitesimal wave sparks weaving dance, its nebulous units grounding shape and mass, magic foundation and pattern of a world, its radiance bursting into the light of stars. He felt a sap of life, a sap of death, into solid matter's dense communion plunging, and its obscure oneness of form she shared with a dumb spirit identity. He beheld the cosmic being at his task. His eyes measured the spaces, gauged the depths, his inner gaze the movements of the soul. He saw the eternal labor of the gods, and looked upon the life of beasts and men. A change now fell upon the singer's mood, a rapture and a pathos moved his voice. He sang no more of light that never wanes, and oneness and pure everlasting bliss. He sang no more the deathless heart of love, his chant was a hymn of ignorance and fate. He sang the name of Vishnu and the birth and joy and passion of the mystic world, and how the stars were made and life began and the mute regions stirred with the throb of a soul. He sang the inconscient and its secret self, its power omnipotent knowing not what it does, all shaping without will or thought or sense, its blind unerring occult mystery, and darkness yearning towards the eternal light, and love that broods within the dim abyss and waits the answer of the human heart, and death that climbs to immortality. He sang of the truth that cries from night's blind deeps, and the mother wisdom hid in nature's breast, and the idea that through her dumbness works, and the miracle of her transforming hands, of life that slumbers in the stone and sun, and mind subliminal in mindless life, and the consciousness that wakes in beasts and men. He sang of the glory and marvel still to be born, of Godhead throwing off at last its veil, of bodies made divine and the delight when every barrier falls, and the transfiguration and the ecstasy. And as he sang the demons wept with joy foreseeing the end of their long dreadful task and the defeat for which they hoped in vain, and glad release from their self-chosen doom and return into the one from whom they came. He who has conquered the immortal seats, came down to men on earth the man divine. As darts a lightning streak, a glory fell nearing until the rapt eyes of the sage looked out from luminous cloud and, strangely limbed, his face, a beautiful mask of antique joy, appearing in light descended where arose King Aswapati's palace to the winds in Madra, flowering up in delicate stone. There welcomed him the sage and thoughtful king, at his side a creature beautiful, passionate, wise, aspiring like a sacrificial flame skyward from its earth seat through luminous air, queen-browed, the human mother of Savitri. There for an hour untouched by the earth's siege they ceased from common life and care and sat inclining to the high and rhythmic voice, while in his measured chant the heavenly seer spoke of the toils of men and what the gods strive for on earth, and joy that throbs behind the marvel and the mystery of pain. He sang to them of the lotus heart of love with all its thousand luminous buds of truth, which quivering sleeps veiled by apparent things. It trembles at each touch, it strives to wake, and one day it shall hear a blissful voice, and in the garden of the spouse shall bloom when she is seized by her discovered lord. Crept through the deep heart of the universe. Out of her matter's stupor, her mind's dreams, she woke, she looked upon God's unveiled face. Even as he sang and rapture stole through earth-time and caught the heavens, came with a call of hooves, as of her swift heart hastening, Savitri, her radiant tread glimmered across the floor. A happy wonder in her fathomless gaze, changed by the halo of her love she came, her eyes rich with a shining mist of joy as one who comes from a heavenly embassy discharging the proud mission of her heart, one carrying the sanction of the gods to her love and its luminous eternity. She stood before her mighty Father's throne and, eager for beauty on discovered earth transformed and new in her heart's miracle light, saw like a rose of marvel, worshipping the fire-tinged sweetness of the Son of Heaven. He flung on her his vast immortal look, his inner gaze surrounded her with its light, and reining back knowledge from his immortal lips he cried to her, "Who is this that comes, the bride, the flame-born?" And round her illumined head pouring their lights her hymeneal pomps move flashing about her. From what green glimmer of glades retreating into dewy silences or half-seen verge of waters moon-betrayed bringst thou this glory of enchanted eyes? Earth has gold-hued expanses, shadowy hills that cowl their dreaming phantom heads in night, and, guarded in a chloistral joy of woods, screened banks sink down into felicity seized by the curved incessant yearning hands and ripple passion of the upgazing stream. Amid cool-lipped murmurs of its pure embrace they lose their souls on beds of trembling reeds. And all these are mysterious presences in which some spirit's immortal bliss is felt, and they betray the earth-born heart to joy. There'st thou paused, and marvelling born eyes unknown, or heard a voice that forced thy life to strain its rapture through thy listening soul? Or, if my thought could trust this shimmering gaze, it would say thou wast not drunk from an earthly cup, but stepping through azure curtains of the noon thou wast surrounded on a magic verge in brighter countries than man's eyes can bear. Assailed by trooping voices of delight and seized mid a sunlit glamour of the boughs in fairy woods, led down the gleaming slopes of Gand Hamadan where the Apsaras roam, thy limbs have shared the sports which none has seen, and in God haunts thy human footsteps strayed, thy mortal bosom quivered with God's speech and thy soul answered to a word unknown. What feet of gods, what ravishing flutes of heaven have thrilled high melodies round, from near and far approaching through the soft and revelling air, which still surprised thou hearest. They have fed thy silence on some red strange ecstasied fruit and thou hast trod the dim moon peaks of bliss. Reveal, O winged with light, whence thou hast flown hastening bright-hued through the green tangled earth, thy body rhythmical with the spring bird's call. The empty roses of thy hands are filled only with their own beauty and the thrill of a remembered clasp, and in thee glows a heavenly jar, thy firm deep-honeyed heart, new brimming with a sweet and nectarous wine. Thou hast not spoken life's perilous music rings yet to thy ear far melodied, rapid and grand, a centaur's song, or soft as water plashing mid the hills, or mighty as a great chant of many winds. Moon-bright thou livest in thy inner bliss. Thou comest like a silver deer through groves of coral flowers and buds of glowing dreams, or fleest like a wind goddess through leaves, or roamst, O ruby-eyed and snow-winged dove, flitting through thickets of thy pure desires in the unwounded beauty of thy soul. These things are only images to thy earth, but truest truth of that which in thee sleeps. For such is thy spirit, a sister of the gods, thy earthly body lovely to the eyes and thou art kin in joy to heaven's sons. O thou who hast come to this great perilous world now only seen through the splendor of thy dreams, where hardly love and beauty can live safe, thyself a being dangerously great, a soul alone in a golden house of thought has lived walled in by the safety of thy dreams. On heights of happiness leaving doom asleep who hunts unseen the unconscious lives of men, if thy heart could live locked in the ideal's gold, as high, as happy might thy waking be. If for all time doom could be left asleep, he spoke but held his knowledge back from words. As a cloud plays with lightning's vivid laugh, but still holds back the thunder in its heart, only he let bright images escape. His speech like glimmering music veiled his thoughts, as a wind flatters the bright summer air, pitiful to mortals, only to them it spoke of living beauty and of present bliss. He hid in his all-knowing mind the rest. To those who hearken to his celestial voice, the veil heaven's pity throws on future pain, the immortal's sanction seemed of endless joy. But Aswapati answered to the seer, his listening mind had marked the dubious close, an ominous shadow felt behind the words, but calm like one who ever sits facing fate here mid the dangerous contours of earth's life, he answered covert thought with guarded speech. O deathless sage who knowest all things here, if I could read by the ray of my own wish through the carved shield of symbol images which thou hast thrown before thy heavenly mind, I might see the steps of a young godlike life happily beginning luminoside on earth, between the unknowable and the unseen, born on the borders of two wonderworlds, it flames out symbols of the infinite and lives in a great light of inner suns. For it has read and broken the wizard seals, it has drunk of the immortal's wells of joy, it has looked across the jewel bars of heaven, it has entered the aspiring secrecy, it sees beyond terrestrial common things and communes with the powers that build the worlds, till through the shining gates and mystic streets of the city of lapis lazuli and pearl proud deeds step forth, a rank and march of gods. Although in pauses of our human lives earth keeps for man some short and perfect hours when the inconstant tread of time can seem the eternal moment which the deathless live, yet rare that touch upon the mortal's world. Hardly a soul and body here are born in the fierce difficult movement of the stars, whose life can keep its rhythm repeat the many-toned melody tirelessly throbbing through the rapturous air caught in the song that sways the Apsara's limbs when she floats gleaming like a cloud of light, a wave of joy on heaven's moonstone floor. Behold this image cast by light and love, a stanza of the ardor of the gods perfectly rhymed, a pillared ripple of gold. Her body like a brimmed pitcher of delight shaped in a splendor of gold-colored bronze as if to seize earth's truth of hidden bliss. Dream-made illumined mirrors are her eyes draped subtly in a slumberous fringe of jet, retaining heaven's reflections in their depths. Even as her body, such is she within. Heaven's lustrous mornings gloriously recur, like drops of fire upon a silver page, in her young spirit yet untouched with tears. All beautiful things eternal seem and new to virgin wonder in her crystal soul. The unchanging blue reveals its spacious thought, marvelous the moon floats on through wondering skies, earth's flowers spring up and laugh at time and death, the charmed mutations of the enchanter life race like bright children past the smiling hours. If but this joy of life could last, nor pain throw its bronze note into her rhythm days. Behold her, singer with the prescient gaze, and let thy blessing chant that this fair child shall pour the nectar of a sorrowless life around her from her lucid heart of love, he'll with her bliss the tide breast of earth and cast like a happy snare felicity. As grows the great and golden bounteous tree flowering by Alakananda's murmuring waves, where with enamored speed the waters run lisping and babbling to the splendor of morn and cling with lyric laughter round the knees of heaven's daughters dripping magic rain pearl bright from moon gold limbs and cloudy hair. So are her dawns like jeweled leaves of light, so casts she her felicity on men. A flame of radiant happiness she was born, and surely will that flame set earth alight, doom surely will see her pass and say no word. But too often here the careless mother leaves her chosen in the envious hands of fate, the harp of God falls mute, its call to bliss discouraged fails mid earth's unhappy sounds. The strings of the siren ecstasy cry not here or soon are silenced in the human heart. Of sorrow's songs we have enough, bid once her glad and griefless days bring heaven here. Or must fire always test the grate of soul? Along the dreadful causeway of the gods, armored with love and faith and sacred joy, a traveler to the Eternal's house, once let unwounded pass a mortal life, but Narad answered not, silent he sat, knowing that words are vain and fate is Lord. He looked into the unseen with seeing eyes, then, dallying with the mortal's ignorance like one who knows not, questioning, he cried, on what high mission went her hastening wheels? Whence came she with this glory in her heart and paradise made visible in her eyes? What sudden God has met, what face supreme, to whom the king, the red Asoka watched her going forth which now sees her return? Arisen into an air of flaming dawn like a bright bird tired of her lonely branch, to find her own Lord, since to her on earth came not yet, this sweetness wandered forth, cleaving her way with the beat of her rapid wings. Led by a distant call, her vague swift flight threaded the summer morns and sunlit lands. The happy rest her burdened lashes keep, and these charmed guardian lips hold treasured still. Virgin who comest perfected by joy, reveal the name thy sudden heartbeats learned. Whom hast thou chosen, kingliest among men? And Savitri answered with her still calm voice as one who speaks beneath the eyes of fate, Father and King, I have carried out thy will. One whom I sought I found in distant lands, I have obeyed my heart, I have heard its call. On the borders of a dreaming wilderness mid Shalwa's giant hills and brooding woods, in his thatched hermitage Dumatsina dwells, blind, exiled, outcast, once a mighty king. The son of Dumatsina, Suchavan, I have met on the wild forest's lonely verge. My father, I have chosen. This is done. Astonished, all sat silent for a space. Then Aswapati looked within and saw a heavy shadow float above the name, chased by a sudden and stupendous light. He looked into his daughter's eyes and spoke, Well hast thou done, and I approve thy choice. If this is all, then all is surely well. If there is more, then all can still be well. Whether it seem good or evil to men's eyes, only for good the secret will can work. Our destiny is written in double terms. Through nature's contraries we draw nearer God, out of the darkness we still grow to light. Death is our road to immortality. Cry woe, the world's lost voices wail, yet conquers the eternal good at last. Then might the sage have spoken, but the king in haste broke out and stayed the dangerous word. O singer of the ultimate ecstasy, lend not a dangerous vision to the blind, because by native right thou hast seen clear. Impose not on the mortal's tremulous breast the dire ordeal that foreknowledge brings. Demand not now the Godhead in our acts. Here are not happy peaks the heaven nymphs roam, or coilers or Vicantha's starry stare. Abrupt, jagged hills only the mighty climb are here, where few dare even think to rise. Far voices call down from the dizzy rocks. Chill, slippery, precipitous are the paths too hard. The gods are with man's fragile race. In their large heavens they dwell exempt from fate, and they forget the wounded feet of man, his limbs that faint beneath the whips of grief, his heart that hears the tread of time and death. The future's road is hid from mortal sight, he moves towards a veiled and secret face. To light one step in front is all his hope, and only for a little strength he asks to meet the riddle of his shrouded fate. Awaited by a vague and half-seen force, aware of danger to his uncertain hours, he guards his flickering yearnings from her breath. He feels not when the dreadful fingers close around him with the grasp none can elude. If thou canst loose her grip, then only speak. Perhaps from the iron snare there is escape. Our mind perhaps deceives us with its words and gives the name of doom to our own choice. Perhaps the blindness of our will is fate. But now the queen alarmed lifted her voice. O seer, thy bright arrival has been timed to this high moment of a happy life. Then let the speech benign of griefless spheres confirm this blithe conjunction of two stars, and sanction joy with thy celestial voice. Here drag not in the peril of our thoughts, let not our words create the doom they fear. Here is no cause for dread, no chance for grief to raise her ominous head and stare at love. A single spirit in a multitude, happy is Suchavan mid earthly men whom Savitri has chosen for her mate, and fortunate the forest hermitage where, leaving her palace and riches and a throne, my Savitri will dwell and bring in heaven. Then let thy blessing put the immortal seal on these bright lives, unstained felicity pushing the ominous shadow from their days. Too heavy falls a shadow on man's heart, it dares not be too happy upon earth. It dreads the blow dogging too vivid joys, a lash unseen in fate's extended hand, the danger lurking in fortune's proud extremes, an irony in life's indulgent smile, and trembles at the laughter of the gods. Or if crouches unseen a panther doom, if wings of evil brood above that house, then also speak, that we may turn aside and rescue our lives from hazard of wayside doom and chance entanglement of an alien fate. And Narad slowly answered to the queen, what help is in provision to the driven? Safe doors cry opening near, the doomed pass on. A future knowledge is an added pain, a torturing burden and a fruitless light in the enormous scene that fate has built. The eternal poet, universal mind, has paged each line of his imperial act, invisible the giant actors tread and man lives like some secret player's mask. He knows not even what his lips shall speak. For a mysterious power compels his steps and life is stronger than his trembling soul. None can refuse what the stark force demands, her eyes are fixed upon her mighty aim, no cry or prayer can turn her from her path. She has leaped an arrow from the bow of God, his words were theirs who live unforced to grieve and help by calm the swaying wheels of life and the long restlessness of transient things and the trouble and passion of the unquiet world. As though her own bosom were pierced, the mother saw the ancient human sentence strike her child, her sweetness that deserved another fate only a larger measure given of tears. Aspiring to the nature of the gods, a mind proof armored mailed in mighty thoughts, a will entire couchant behind wisdom's shield, though to still heavens of knowledge she had risen, though calm and wise and Aswapati's queen, human was she still and opened her doors to grief. The stony-eyed injustice she accused of the marble godhead of inflexible law, nor sought the strength extreme adversity brings to lives that stand erect and front the world power. Her heart appealed against the impartial judge, taxed with perversity the impersonal one. Her tranquil spirit she called not to her aid, but as a common man beneath his load, what stealthy doom has crept across her path emerging from the dark forest's sullen heart? What evil thing stood smiling by the way and wore the beauty of the Shalwa boy? Perhaps he came an enemy from her past armed with the hidden force of ancient wrongs, himself unknowing, and seized her unknown. Here dreadfully entangled love and hate meet us blind wanderers mid the perils of time. Our days are links of a disastrous chain, necessity avenges casual steps, old cruelties come back unrecognized, the gods make use of our forgotten deeds. Yet all in vain the bitter law was made. Our own minds are the justices of doom. For nothing have we learned, but still repeat our stark misuse of self and others' souls. There are dire alchemies of the human heart and fallen from his ethereal element love darkens to the spirit of nether gods. The dreadful angel, angry with his joys woundingly sweet he cannot yet forego, is pitiless to the soul his gaze disarmed. He visits with his own pangs his quivering prey forcing us to cling enamored to his grip as if in love with our own agony. This is one poignant misery in the world, and grief has other lassos for our life. Our sympathies become our torturers. Strength have I my own punishment to bear, knowing it just, but on this earth perplexed, smitten in the sorrow of scourged and helpless things, often it faints to meet other suffering eyes. We are not as the gods who know not grief and look impassive on a suffering world, calm they gaze down on the little human scene and the short-lived passion crossing mortal hearts. An ancient tale of woe can move us still, we keep the ache of breasts that breathe no more, we are shaken by the sight of human pain, and share the miseries that others feel. Ours not the passionless lids that cannot age. Too hard for us is heaven's indifference, our own tragedies are not enough for us. All pathos and all sufferings we make ours, we have sorrow for a greatness passed away and feel the touch of tears in mortal things. Even a stranger's anguish rends my heart, and this, O Narad, is my well-loved child. Hide not from us our doom, if doom is ours. This is the worst, an unknown face of fate, a terror ominous, mute, felt more than seen behind our seat by day, our couch by night, a fate lurking in the shadow of our hearts, the anguish of the unseen that waits to strike. To know is best, however hard to bear. Then cried the sage piercing the mother's heart, forcing to steal the will of Savitri, his words set free the spring of cosmic fate. The great gods use the pain of human hearts as a sharp axe to hew their cosmic road, they squander lavishly men's blood and tears for a moment's purpose in their fateful work. This cosmic nature's balance is not ours nor the mystic measure of her need and use. A single word lets loose vast agencies, a casual act determines the world's fate. So now he set free destiny in that hour. The truth thou hast claimed, I give to thee the truth. A marvel of the meeting earth and heavens is he whom Savitri has chosen mid men, his figure is the front of nature's march, his single being excels the works of time. A sapphire cutting from the sleep of heaven, delightful is the soul of such Arvin, a ray out of the rapturous infinite, a silence waking to a hymn of joy. A divinity and kingliness gird his brow, his eyes keep a memory from a world of bliss. As brilliant as a lonely moon in heaven, gentle like the sweet bud that spring desires, pure like a stream that kisses silent banks, he takes with bright surprise spirit and sense. A living knot of golden paradise, a blue immense he leans to the longing world, time's joy borrowed out of eternity, a star of splendor or a rose of bliss. In him soul and nature, equal presences, balance and fuse in a wide harmony. The happy in their bright ether have not hearts more sweet and true than this of mortal make that takes all joy as the world's native gift and to all gives joy as the world's natural right. His speech carries a light of inner truth, and a large-eyed communion with the power in common things has made veilless his mind, a seer in earth shapes of garbless deity. A tranquil breadth of sky windless and still watching the world like a mind of unplumbed thought, a silent space musing and luminous uncovered by the morning to delight, a green tangle of trees upon a happy hill made into a murmuring nest by southern winds, these are his images and parallels, his kin in beauty and in depth his peers. A will to climb lifts a delight to live, lain on the lap of mortal ecstasy. His sweetness and his joy attract all hearts to live with his own in a glad tenancy, his strength is like a tower built to reach heaven, a godhead quarried from the stones of life. O loss, if death into its elements of which his gracious envelope was built, shatter this vase before it breathes its sweets, as if earth could not keep too long from heaven a treasure thus unique loaned by the gods, a being so rare, of so divine a make. In one brief year when this bright hour flies back and perches careless on a branch of time, this sovereign glory ends heaven lent to earth, this splendor vanishes from the mortal sky, heaven's greatness came, but was too great to stay. 12 swift-winged months are given to him and her, this day returning such Arvin must die, a lightning bright and mute the sentence fell. But the queen cried, vain then can be heaven's grace. Heaven mocks us with the brilliance of its gifts, for death is a cupbearer of the wine of too brief joy held up to mortal lips for a passionate moment by the careless gods. But I reject the grace in the mockery. Mounting thy car go forth, O Savitri, and travel once more through the peopled lands. Alas, in the green gladness of the woods thy heart has stooped to a misleading call. Choose once again and leave this fated head, death is the gardener of this wonder tree, love's sweetness sleeps in his pale marble hand. Advancing in a honeyed line but closed, a casket void dropped on a careless soil, a choice less rare may call a happier fate, but Savitri answered from her violent heart, her voice was calm, her face was fixed like steel, once my heart chose and chooses not again. The word I have spoken can never be erased, it is written in the record book of God. The truth once uttered, from the earth's air effaced, by mind forgotten, sounds immortally forever in the memory of time. Once the dice fall thrown by the hand of fate in an eternal moment of the gods. My heart has sealed its troth to such Arvin, its signature adverse fate cannot efface, its seal not fate nor death nor time dissolve. Those who shall part who have grown one being within? Death's grip can break our bodies, not our souls, if death take him, I too know how to die. Let fate do with me what she will or can, I am stronger than death and greater than my fate, my love shall outlast the world, doom falls from me helpless against my immortality. Fate's law may change, but not my spirit's will, an adamant will, she cast her speech like bronze. But in the queen's mind listening her words rang like the voice of a self-chosen doom denying every issue of escape.